crunch, bring it back, single leg swing. Let me teach you how to wrestle. Okay. Let me teach you how to wrestle.
And welcome back to Wrestling Mindset. Today I'm here with All-American Lennox Wolak. At Lennox, welcome. Thank you for jumping on board.
Thank you. Excited to chat. Yeah, it's gonna be fun.
Awesome. So let's take it from the top. When did you start wrestling? You're from Ohio originally?
Yeah, I'm from Columbus, Ohio. I'd say my wrestling career started my freshman year of high school. I grew up doing judo, and my dad and our family are really good friends with the Demases. And so Lou Demas was my high school club coach all throughout high school. And when we're looking at which high school to go to, we were heavily swayed by the Demas family. And they're like, yo, come to Dublin Kaufman and try out wrestling with Dom. So that's when I really started like competitively wrestling, was my freshman year of high school, and definitely influenced heavily by the Demases.
That's awesome. And then talk about how things moved from there and eventually going on to Columbia. I mean, great school.
So it was something where at first, like, judo was still my main focus. I'd like cross-trained a little bit, like in middle school, just gone into a couple practices, but it wasn't really wrestling focused. It was more cross-training, not wrestling. My first couple years, especially my freshman year, I didn't really know anything about wrestling. It was almost a culture shock too. You come from judo, that's very there's a lot of respect, a lot of discipline, a lot of rules, and you come into the wrestling culture and it's intense, you know? And I think it was something that I was prepared for well. My dad had coached me all growing up, and it was definitely like tough-nosed, blue-collar mentality that transitioned well into wrestling. So it was a shock, but it was almost a good shock, and I jumped into a really intense room that I really fit into the culture. I put my head down, I worked, but the intensity of wrestling is very different than judo, and the respect is earned, I feel, a lot more than it is given, where in the past it was you treat everyone with a ton of respect. And wrestling, once you get a little bit more removed, it comes back to the end of the day, we're all wrestlers and wrestlers respect wrestlers. But I think in the heat of the moment and in rooms, there's a lot of respect that kind of needs to be earned for the better or for worse. So my first year, I just was scrapping. I didn't really know any of the etiquette. I was wearing shoes that were my uncle's from when he wrestled, and they were like 2 sizes too big for me. I was tripping all over them. I would go into my matches. I didn't know really how to sprawl. So they would just like take me down 2 or 3 times, and then I'd get up, throw them, and pin them. And I think I pinned most of my wins were by pin, but I would have crazy barn burner matches my freshman year, just doing super unorthodox stuff that doesn't work necessarily consistently, but it's a really good base and does work if set up right. So after that, after my freshman year, I think I was like a district qualifier. I went like 1 and 2 at districts, and I put in a ton of work over the off season. I tried to do freestyle and Greco. I didn't make the freestyle Fargo team. I barely made the Greco Fargo team. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to send it for Fargo. And so Lou Demas, Dom and Josh Demas's dad, he was a Greco guy. He wrestled for the Marines. And so that was his thing. And I trained all summer with him and really just focused on Greco. And my judo training, we just basically cross-trained it. We developed basically a drill, a 7 series of throws that could transition to Greco. And that summer, I just trained really hard for Fargo. And I ended up All-Americaning out at Fargo. I took 8th. I squeaked onto the podium, but got on the podium. And after that, I also got a lot bigger. So I bumped up to 170 my sophomore year from 138. And that was something that my parents, they didn't want me to cut weight at all. They saw a lot of the kind of the problematic nature of the weight cutting, and they always encouraged me to gain weight and to get bigger and wrestle my natural weight. So that was something where I jumped up to 170 my sophomore year, 182 my junior year, and I tried to go 95 my senior year, but I just couldn't pack on the weight, and I like had to come back down halfway through season because I was walking around at like 180 trying to wrestle 95. But it was definitely something where later on in my high school career, I stopped competing and training as much judo and started shifting my focus to wrestling. Uh, American judo is very weak. To get like a strong tournament, you have to go across the country. You have to find training partners, especially judo in Ohio. You go to the state tournament and there's like 4 kids in your bracket, and they're not very good. So it was very, very cool to just come to a local tournament in Ohio and just there would be a lot of kids who are really into wrestling, a lot of fans really into wrestling. So that was something that really drew me to the sport. And so I kind of just jumped right in. And I didn't necessarily think I was going to wrestle in college and necessarily thought I'd wrestle D1. I hadn't even heard of Columbia, but after my junior year, I placed at States and they reached out and I went on a visit and the rest is history.
Man, so what age did you start judo and what age was wrestling?
So I started judo. So my dad started judo when he was 18 and he tried to go competitive and he did a couple national ranking tournaments, but he could never really break through to that next level. And he was always losing to guys who had been doing judo since they could walk. So he's like, when I have kids, they're going to be on the mat as soon as possible. So there's pictures of me crawling around the mat, with my dad at the Ohio State Judo Club. And so basically it's like ever since I could walk, I was on the mat for judo. I didn't start wrestling until freshman year. So what's that like?
So you were
15?
a freshman. You were an All-American in Fargo and Greco your second year of wrestling?
My first year of wrestling.
That's nuts. So I mean, judo had to have in a lot of ways even technically prepared you for it too.
No, 100%. I mean,
Man.
for one, technically, Greco transitions really well. Judo, there's a lot of throws, a lot of arm spins, headlocks, hip tosses are all part of judo. Funnily enough, I'm not a big thrower in judo. I'm more of a mat, an equivalent of a mat wrestler in judo. I'm really good with chokes and pins. And so my freshman year, I was able to I had a pretty good leg series on top. But then after my growth spurt, my center of balance was off. But I think it's a really good base. Even if a lot of the technique didn't transition, you're getting a feel for it. Grappling is grappling, whether it's BJJ, sambo, judo, wrestling.
Right.
Feeling body weight and pressure is very similar across the board. And just being able to get those fundamentals lets you transition it well.
Yeah, I was thinking, what are the specifics that you feel like that have really helped you transition like it, and even mentally, mentally and physically and technically, I guess that's a big question. But what are some of the unique advantages that you had that you were able to jump levels quicker than maybe other people they didn't have that?
Yeah, that's a really good question.
Like the fact that even move, like you said, things weren't as intense. Well, we might look at that naturally as, oh, that's a weakness, hands down wrestling, which no, that's great that wrestlers do that. But there's also things that come negatives that we don't slow it down maybe as much as we could. I don't know.
I think there's a lot to it. And it's something I really pride myself on in my career is my continuous growth and my continuous improvement. So every season I've got better, and you see a lot of guys plateau, fall off, just go off the deep end. And it's something that I've really enjoyed in the sport, just getting better and figuring stuff out. And I think that has a lot to do. And I do think it also has to do with my competition mindset because I'm not the best wrestler in the room. And I think a lot of guys who are good in competition don't necessarily wrestle as well in the room. But it's something where I think, let me take it back. So I think judo on a whole is really is a lot more respectful, a lot more disciplined. But like with my dad training me, he made sure we were tough, and he made sure we were competitors. And like, I mean, we'd play this game called like the Beast game, and he would line up all the kids basically in a ladder, and you'd start on your back, and the other guy would start pinning them.
The time is now to take your mindset to the next level with Wrestling Mindset. Make sure you go to our website, wrestlingmindset.com, and sign up for your free trial session today. Don't wait any longer. You want the mental edge right now. When you sign up for the free trial session, you're also going to get a copy of our free ebook, Building the Predator Mindset. This book has helped thousands of people build confidence, relax under pressure, get motivated, and build mental toughness in wrestling, school, and life. Make sure you sign up for your free trial session today.
And yeah, in judo, if you hold someone on their back for 20 seconds, basically the equivalent of 20 seconds of back points, that's a pin. So it's not like a touch pin in like wrestling where only the two shoulders are on the ground. If you're getting pinned, you're getting squeezed. It sucks. Like you can't get your back. Yeah. So we would do that game and we'd play it for a long time, and kids would just be crying. Kids would be getting so like frustrated, but it like made us tough. And none of us basically ever got pinned in judo, and we always would pin kids. And I think that was just an example of the mentality of like training hard, like being disciplined, that does translate over to wrestling. But I do think I have a lot to thank my dad for in terms of my competitive mindset. It has shifted since I've got to college. In high school, I would be like psychotic before my matches. It was like my teammates would be like scared to go near me because I'd just be like foaming at the mouth in this just like real like psycho mindset. And I think it let me compete hard at an early age. And now I realize it's really mentally draining to get to that place. But I think being able to mentally lock in and focus is a thing that I've taken from judo, and competing competitively at an early age that let me transition to wrestling. In terms of technique-wise, I think being able to go big helped keep me in a lot of matches too. If my skill set was only like shooting single legs and I get down by 7 points and the match is over, I'm kind of screwed. But I was never and I am never out of a match. And so I think that was another thing that helped me transition quickly. Yeah, I think that kind of touches the surface, but I could talk about for an hour why I think I've been able to get better in the sport and why I was able to transition quickly.
Well, that's huge because I mean, a lot of people have been wrestling for years and years and years, and a lot of times just wrestling, and it's like there's also more, there might be more optimal way to train, where now it would seem like also, now what year are you right now?
So I'm graduating from Columbia this year, and I'll use I have another year of eligibility, and I'm going to use that at Virginia Tech. So I have 1 year left in my wrestling career.
Right. So, but I would still think now, because you started wrestling as a freshman in high school, there's still got to be a level of freshness. I mean, that's still a heck of a lot of time doing it since then, right? At a high level, but still there is a certain level of freshness that other people wouldn't have who've been doing it for even longer. Right. I mean, the ability to jump levels. I think everyone's always looking to crack that code. Not that there's one exact code, but anything like that is incredibly beneficial to the wrestling world.
100%. Yeah, I think I am fresh. One of the things my Mike Feeney, he also coached me a lot in high school. He always told me that people like peak 10 years after they start wrestling. I don't know if that's true or not. I like to think it's true because it lines up really well for me, and I'm going to peak for wrestling next year and then be done with my wrestling career. But I do think there is a level of freshness. I do not feel burnt out at all. I'm ready to keep going. Like, I'm forcing myself to take time off the mat after NCAAs. Like, I want to be back on the mat. But I think the one thing that really helped me kind of stay fresh and stay hungry was always feeling like I was behind and I needed to catch up to people. So coming from judo, it's like I know I can beat everyone, but they're better wrestlers than me. But that doesn't mean I'm going to lose to them. So I think there was an element of playing catch up while being confident and knowing I can beat anyone. So I think that is a weird paradox that not a lot of people have, but I think is I find very true for myself.
Yeah, no, and as you describe it, I could imagine like, yeah, like you have what it takes to beat these guys, but yet you're just honing you're learning the craft for the first time. So there's that where it is a lot of fun because knowing I will pass these people, but it's still that challenge. That's awesome. And then talk about then going on to Columbia, wrestling in the IWAs, all of that.
Yeah, so I think when I went out on my visit here, I just kind of had a gut feeling. And I don't even know how to say it, but I had two gut feelings. I can tell you exactly where and when it happened. The first one, we were leaving the dorm room to go to practice, and it was two older guys. Well, they were freshmen, and I was in high school with with another recruit, and they ended up being my future teammates, Danny Fungaro and Dan Conley. And I remember them like just walking to practice with those two and my current teammate and roommate, David Berkovich. And I just remember walking across campus with them, looking around. I'm like, wow, this is pretty sweet. And I could like feel the camaraderie and that they had each other's back. And I knew if I were to come to Columbia, I'd have like guys looking after me. And that is true. Like the kid I was on the visit with is my roommate now. And the other feeling I had was it was in the weight room, funnily enough. I'm not a huge fan of the weight room, but it was in the weight room. And I just had a feeling that I'd be like really good at wrestling here. And it was just a gut feeling. I couldn't explain it. And so I kind of knew after my visit, like this is where I wanted to be. I think overall, Columbia as a culture is really good for keeping guys fresh and not burning guys out and keeping them hungry. The one thing Zach Tonelli, our head coach, talks about, it's like our program's in a good place because guys leave with more of a passion and love for the sport of wrestling from when they came in. And I think that's an indicator of like a good program, something that's not burning the guys out. And so I think that's one thing that's been able to like feed into me really positively is just a good culture and being around guys. Like, of course, there's guys on every team who are going through their ups and downs, the love-hate relationship with wrestling. But overall, I think the team culture is really good for actually being passionate about the sport. And then from a coaching standpoint, I feel like I had a really good fit within the coaching staff.
Awesome. And talk about the RTC a little bit and how that's had a big impact, how that's helped.
Yeah, the RTC has been amazing. My welcome to college wrestling was with Mitch Finesilver. We're doing 1st to 25 takedowns, and I'm a freshman. It's like my first like month in college, and he's kicking the crap out of me, but I'm like scrapping. And I know we're going really hard at the end of the room, and I don't know if he doubled me or I like bum rushed him, but we go out into the hall, and I'm like, all right, we have to be done wrestling, right? And he like comes and like collar ties and fakes, and I'm like, okay, we're going. So then we're scrapping out in the hallway, like right in front of the basketball gym on the hardware floor, and like one of the coaches had to pull us back in. But it was definitely like Mitch Finesilver helped a lot. He was with RTC for most of my career, and that was definitely a guy where I felt like it. That's the other thing I feel like with my growth, I feel the next level of guy, and I'm like, all right, I can chase that down. I can imitate those motions, those behaviors. So in high school, like I had like Dom Demas, and I was able to feel that next level and really just almost try to replicate it in my own wrestling and then take what works for me. So I think when I got to college, like Mitch Finesilver was the one who I was trying to replicate that intensity, replicate that kind of movement. So he definitely probably out of the RTC athletes has had the biggest impact on me, but it's been amazing to to just being able to wrestle some of these foreign guys. Like this summer, I got to wrestle with Avto Kinshadze a lot, and the foreign guys have just such a different feel that's really, really like cool. I can't even describe it. Like I've been lucky enough to wrestle with Chamizo a couple times too, and it's just like a feel you don't get from any American wrestler that I think works well with my style too. And it's that exposure to the really high level athletes that allows me to start to make those strides and start to make those jumps.
And that's awesome. Oh, what does the next couple months look like for you and the preparation?
So, sorry, go on.
No, just what does your preparation look like for the next couple months?
Yeah, so I think right now I am gonna take a little bit of time off and force myself to take time off. I was gonna take 2 weeks. I think I'm gonna take maybe 3 weeks off the mat and just like let my body fully heal from nationals. Like I think everyone's banged up after that, but not start training until I'm 100% healthy. I think that's a luxury in the sport and something that I don't think people take good enough cares of their body. And that was one thing I really made sure to do this year was not actually overtraining and making sure my body and head was in a really good space. So I'm going to make sure I'm fresh, and then I'm going to get back on the mat, figure out. I already have a couple positions I want to work on and just kind of troubleshoot those, but let my body rest up. I'm going to be in New York training with the NYCRTC this summer, working in the city, and then I will move out to Blacksburg and get into that room and hopefully make some strides there.
Awesome. Have you been around a lot of the coaches and future teammates there? Or you'll be going out for the first?
Yeah, I went on a recruiting visit. So I got to meet most of the team, got to meet the coaches, and then I've been in contact with them and talked to them obviously at NCAs and everything. So definitely still like the early stages of like our relationship, but still have set a good foundation, and I'm excited to build those connections more.
Oh yeah, definitely. Oh, awesome stuff. And I'm sure they'll be really happy to have you. Thank you, Lennox. Great stuff. I might run into you probably sometime this summer at some point, maybe over at the RTC, but good seeing you.
Awesome. It was great to meet you. I'm excited to meet you in person.
Absolutely. Take care.
All right, we'll do.
Bye.
Bye.